Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So glad you've joined us today to stay curious on this date, March 18th, 2025, 60 years ago. This event was happening on our green screen here that's depicted at the wonderful Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas, where I've been lucky to be in it twice. And this was a photo I took about 5 years ago of Alexei Leonov exiting his makeshift uh, 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 EVA tent, if for better words, to exit this bulbous Vostok 2 spacecraft where he did the world's first spacewalk or extravehicular activity. And I was going to say that's a hatch there, like an exit hatch that we have on the International Space Station. And since then, how many people have followed Alexei Leonov? We got to get back to Marty's questions as I say hello to my friend Marty Winkle, who's writing your names down already as you're signing into the American Space Museum's YouTube channel, and we appreciate that. Tell people to like what they see. I'm going to beam you all up there myself. But Marty, good Tuesday to you. It's a beautiful last week of winter here in the Space Coast, and we got a rocket launch that might be noisy right now. Did it go off? We had a SpaceX launch scheduled at 4 o'clock, so I haven't heard the rumble yet. But Mark Thales saying hello from Minnesota. Steve Jokums is saying hello to all of us here from his Lake County Spaceport in Fox Lake, Illinois. And we'll hear from a lot of you as I'm going to talk about a program that really excites me. 1965, I was a young teenager, eat up with telescopes and astronauts and everything that had to do with astronomy. And this was a moment in time, Marty, that time froze when we were announced to the world that Leonov had executed the first human to exit into the void of outer space and walk around. We didn't know much about it. It wasn't told about ahead of time. It would be a month later that Ed White would do our first spacewalk on Gemini 4 at the end of March, I believe. And so Tom Celentano said he just watched the liftoff at 3:57. So, and Julie Clay saying hello, everyone. Hi to you, Julie. So we missed another noisy rocket. I didn't hear a rumble too much in here, but we could have looked at it out the window there. But so, and of course, the drama going on today in outer space, as far as humans in space go, 60 years later, is Butch Wilmer and Sonny Williams are indeed poised to return to Earth. They'll be going through re-entry in about an hour, scheduled for a 5:57 landing Eastern Daylight Time near Pensacola in the Gulf of Mexico / America. Okay.
Is it 5:57 or 6:57? I think it's 6:57.
Someone's going to tell us right there. 5:57 might be Central Time, Houston time. I get that confused sometimes. They were talking about it on NASA channel and they were given Central Time for the undocking. And so when I stayed up for what I thought was the undocking, that was too late to stay up till later. But what time is the landing Eastern Standard Time splashdown for our astronauts who took an 8-day cruise and turned it into an 8-month cruise? And we'll talk about that, how long they were up there, how much time they accumulated here in just a few minutes. So big exciting day for me because, boy, this Leonov spacewalk was was called a hoax because the photographs published by the Russians showed a shadow behind Leonov in studio lights, much like the hoaxsters of Apollo 11 try to say on all the moon landings. And though some of the pictures released by the Soviets may have been posed in a studio as propaganda photos, indeed, Alexei Leonov did walk in space We're going to tell you a little more about him. He became the first Russian to shake an American hand, Tom Stafford's, on the Apollo-Soyuz test project that was 10 years ago, coming up in, 50 years ago, coming up in July. 10 years apart is what my mind was doing there when I said 10. So 10 years after he did this spacewalk, well, 15 years, 1960 to 1975. Yeah, no, 1965 to 75. 10 years later, he is shaking hands with an American in space, our adversaries, and become best friends with Tom Stafford. And in between that 10-year period, Alexi Leonov was training to be the first person on the moon, the first man on the moon in the heated race between the USSR and the USA to go to the moon first. People forget about that, don't they, Marty? Julie Clay, we said hi to you. Tommy Usiak, good afternoon. You missed that nice weather last weekend already. Yes, you did. Splashdown at 5:57 Eastern Daylight Time is what Steve Jokums, our fact checker, says there, Marty. Off the coast of Florida. That'll be off our west coast. Into that big body of water that since 1500s has been called the Gulf of Mexico. If they want to call it the Gulf of America, that's okay with me. But in a good sunny afternoon, says MarQ Usiak, as in SUNI, Sunita Williams. We'll talk about how many days she's been accumulated in space. And I think Butch has got a beard coming back, Marty. He grew some facial hair up there. So, but let's kick it off with our Shuttle Fest, getting close to selling out. All right, had over 90-some tickets sold, selling every day. If you don't get your ticket this week, I'm going to push it the next day or two. Shame on you. Maybe I'll go to Space Hipsters promotion day at the end of the month to sell out. But we've already got plenty of people coming. It's already in the black. And thank you to all the wonderful sponsors, including the Ramanujan family that has made a healthy contribution to pay for the astronauts coming, a good portion of it. Ken Havicott, sponsor to you, buddy. They're got their names up here. Oh, I didn't put it on that one. We need to revise that. All kinds of wonderful people coming, from Mr. Jay Honeycutt to Mike Leinbach, Bob Seek, JoAnn Morgan, all NASA legends, artist Chris Calley, authors Jonathan Ward and David Chudwin, the Usiak brothers, Nick Thomas, KSC VC's astronaut wrangler, and Emily Carney, among the many that are going to be there. Space Hipster #1, Emily. So, let's see. Thel, can't wait to meet you, myself. PBS, Steve Joachim says the Russian right stuff was an excellent series on the old Soviet space program. PBS, I'll Google that on my PBS channel there, Steve. Thank you. They definitely had a lot of the wrong stuff during the Khrushchev era, for sure. And this spacewalk was right after Khrushchev was deposed in that horrible 3-person Vostok Voskhod 1. This was Voskhod 2 that we're going to be talking about in this picture there. Man, that looks so cool. Wait till I give you some details about it. But first, we got to wish happy birthday to somebody that Marty and I both met at the Kennedy Visitors Complex. Happy 71st birthday to James Francis Riley II. JR, as he's known as, was born March 18th, 1954 in Montana Home Air Force Base, Idaho. But he was raised in Dallas, Texas. So his dad was an Air Force man. He's a frequent presenter at the astronaut encounter of Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. Flew to space on STS 89, 104, and 117. 35 days in space, 3 spacewalks. There he is out there at the Space Center. With Nick Thomas taking his picture with the family there. Hadn't been out there in a while, to my recollection, Marty, or I missed him. No. Probably been about a year. And spent 22 days in the deep submersive vehicles operated by Harbor Branch Oceanographic by the U.S. Navy. He was the director of the U.S. Geological Survey, was J.R. Riley, under President Trump's first administration. And he's working for the defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton, okay, on there. He's one that maybe I've just been out there one time, Marty. And when they get a little older, you forget what they look like compared to their astronaut birthday there. But did you go out to the Space Center today, Marty? Who's out there that I need to go see?
Heidi Piper.
Oh,
I won't try and pronounce her maiden name.
right. Stefan Stefanssonen Piper. Yeah, she's awesome out there. I've got a couple dolls to sign for my granddaughters. And so we'll be out, hopefully try to see her tomorrow. I may have a light day tomorrow that I can sneak out there and relax a little bit and call it work out there and say hi to Mr. Nick. And I also got to get the astronaut signed shuttle back and replace him with a blank one. All right, let's talk about Butch and Sonny coming home here. There's Butch, got some whiskers on him there. At the bottom is at the bottom. Let me get those guys. At the bottom is Alexander Gorbanov. Okay, kind of looks. He always looks like an Eddie Munster, mischievous character there, and that's Nick Hague behind him. Okay, and both of these. Gorbanov is a rookie at the bottom there in the green shirt. He and Nick Hague came up solo on Crew 9 on September 28th, 2024. They've been in space 172 days together. All right. And Hague has an experienced astronaut in both the Soyuz and the shuttle flight. Has been up there this is his 374th total day in space. All right. And there's Butch on the left, Sonny on the right, posing for some pictures. I watched it as they were floating around getting in there. Kind of fascinated that Butch and Alexander, or not Butch, Nick and Alexander were running around in their skivvies and put their spacesuits on inside the capsule. And you could watch that. It's cool how they popped their head through the helmet area there. But Butch and Sonny suited up in the International Space Station and we're flexing around. And Marty, if you didn't watch any of it, the gloves that they put on, there's a zip opening here that their hands, you can see their hands maneuvering things without the gloves as the gloves were flopping around there. Kind of cool looking picture. And there they are posed together in the space station yesterday in their capsule that's called... oh, what is that capsule called? I was wondering how many times has it been to space, their capsule. Someone tell me the name of the capsule. I don't want to, it's not Endurance. And how many times has this capsule been to space? Okay. And there's Dr. Keith Sewell popping in from Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Great to see you. Hopefully you'll be on our Zoom meeting tomorrow for our Astronomical Society, Brevard Astronomical Society. And hi, Mitchell from snowy Colorado. And we're having a Chamber of Commerce day here for the last weekend of the winter. Thank you, Steve. Freedom. And how many times has Freedom been to space? So how many re-entries will this be for it? But this is in the interior of it there. Sonny, you got Alexander, the Russian, you got Nick Hague, and Butch on the right there. So looking, of course, the media is thrilled that they've been saved, Marty. They're not going to be stranded anymore. They were only up there with 11 group of 11 up there. They were up there with 9 other astronauts for a while. And but they will be happy to get home to see their families, smiles on their faces, and we hope that they have a safe reentry, all right, in freedom. To touch on a little bit about the guys here. Butch is from Tennessee, and forget where Sonny was from. I think New York area up there. Should have had that in front of me. But they are, how much time have they been up there? 287 days they're working on right now. 286, 2 hours and 30 minutes when I pulled this off a couple hours ago. 286 days. We saw them launch, Marty, June 5th, 2024, in that Starliner and the suits they have on their Starliner spacesuits. But both have been experienced, but hadn't flown for over a decade. Butch, I think 13 years and like 130 or something like that. I could look it up, STS 130, and Sonny about 13 years. Yet they were testing a spacecraft, and this was as important a test as the first flight of Columbia, STS-1, or the first flight of Apollo command module, Apollo 7. This was very much a test of all the systems, and all the systems worked great except for the thrusters. And we all know the drama that ensued on that back in June last summer. So 287 days later on an 8-day cruise, so they stayed up about 280 days, 279 days more than their families expected. But to reiterate, these are astronauts. They're trained to accept everything, including death, okay, as a consequence of their job. It's like astronaut Charlie Walker, one of the early astronauts, told us many times and says out the Space Center, I died 1,000 times in a simulator, okay. They were there to do a job, and they've done it well, and then they get the bonus of having another expedition at the International Space Station. Butch will have 465 days in space when he splashes down this afternoon. Sonny will be second in the all-time record for Americans behind Peggy Whitson. Sonny will have 608 days in space, okay? And a total on her, I think she's on 2 previous expeditions of the International Space Station. And both did a spacewalk together. Okay, they weren't stranded up there. They did a spacewalk together, unplanned, unrehearsed, because they'd done spacewalks before. I think that was way cool. They also got into, so they did a spacewalker together with each other to swap out some science stuff and fix something out there. So I think, and they did that about 3 months ago, maybe within 2 months ago. They also, once they got the Crew Dragon SpaceX spacesuits on, they put them on, and they went into the Crew Dragon Freedom that Steve Jokums, thank you Steve, tells me this is its 4th flight, so this will be its 4th re-entry, all right. And they got in that with Haig and Gubinov and moved that capsule from one docking port to the other, all right, to accommodate the ship coming up here, Crew 10, that docked. All right, so they got in Crew 9 and moved it around. So they got experience of moving around in there and over being scared of the hatch leaks and all that sort of stuff. Not that they would be scared at all. So very, very experienced crew, and I'll bet they're just grinning ear to ear. Can't wait to get home, take a good hot shower, eat some good food, and on Freedom's 4th flight to space. And Marty, I think that is, and Steve Jokums and all you out there, I think that's underplayed that SpaceX is reusing their human spaceships, okay, as well as their first boosters, and they're working on bringing back that second booster and reusing it. They're also reusing the fairings on the satellites, and that saves millions of dollars a flight. And these fairings have got, some of them, dozens of flight time on them. That's the cover of the satellites, so it's streamlined going through the atmosphere. All right, any questions about Butch and Sonny? I don't have all the answers except God bless them, and I hope that they have a very safe landing and they will enjoy everything they deserve coming towards them. I'm sure they'll be on the morning TV shows If I mean, and if NASA's right, they will parade them in front of the social media and the news media, so that they can tell their story that this is what I became an astronaut for. All right, not to train in simulators in Houston, but to do the real thing in space. And here's two really national heroes that I think will be thought about for a long, long time. All right. And just briefly about the other astronauts up there, Nick Hague. Uh, Again, 171 days is this mission of Crew 9. 374 days for Nick Hague in space. And this was rookie Alexander Gorbanov. And he's going to say, wow, what a way to break me in here, guys, with this dumping me off with some stranded astronauts up there. Again, tongue in cheek. All become great friends. And once again, Russia, America getting along 250 miles above the Earth. Why in the world hasn't the International Space Station been given the Nobel Peace Prize as the first group or thing, object, to receive that prize? Because that is the true example of Earthlings living off the Earth and doing things to preserve that, the only border that should matter, that thin blue line. Thank you, Nicole Stott, for ingraining that thought in my mind. All right. Oh, wait. What happened to the other guys? Did I not rack them up? Let's see here. I guess I didn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, I accidentally thought I loaded up the other astronauts there. So I'll briefly tell you that we've got, doggone, I wish I'd done that. That's my mistake. So I'll show them to you, huh? Yeah, let's do it that way. We've got a question. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, WCB is asking, is Splashdown on the east or west coast tonight?
West Coast, Gulf of Mexico / America, and off close to Pensacola, where the Naval Air Station is. Real convenient off for them there. We got Don Pettit up in space. This is the Soviet crew that's been up there 189 days. Okay. Let me make that smaller, Marty. There you go. Don Pettit. Okay. Alex Ovechkin, who survived an abort to orbit with Nick Hague. I think that's cool that they went through that together. And then this is their second time they were on an expedition. And another Russian there, Wagner. All right. Pettit has been, he's on his 558th day in space. He's really racking up the time up there. He's our MacGyver up there in space. It does a fabulous talk. By the way, we're a nonprofit, so I don't waste color on my scripts here. And then we've got these Crew 10 that was just launched, and McLean. Let's see, what do they got up there? This is their 4th day in space up there. All right, Ann McLean's over 207 days in space. Nicole Ayers become the 81st woman to go to space. Kirill Preskov, he is a rookie. He became the 260, what are we up to? 263, I think, in space. We'll reprise that maybe tomorrow. And Takuya Onishi of Japan, this is his second trip to space. He was up for 115 days on an expedition. So, and then also in space, right now, 14 humans orbiting the Earth, soon to be 10 again, are these 3 Takyonauts from China. They are including the 3rd woman to go to space. She was a rookie. The 2 other women have been up twice. One of these women might be the first woman on the moon. Okay, could be Wang Huez, all right? And this mission is its 140th day, and Kai Zuhi on the left, the commander, he's been up there for 322 days. He's the most experienced Chinese astronaut of all. This is his 3rd mission. And he could be in the queue for a lunar mission at the end of the decade. So Song Ling Gong there and Wang Huez, they're rookies, 140 days in space. They'll be coming home soon. As soon as I didn't look that up, it's probably out there when the next Shenzhou is going to launch, and they can come back. It'll have 6 up there for a while, a day or two, like we do, swap out the crews. So thank you for letting me share this drama of our wonderful astronauts there, Butch and Sonny, waiting for them and Nick to get back, and Gorbachev. All right, and it should be something to watch later today. Landing at 5:57 approximately p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and Marty, you might be able to see it. Looking to the west, you could see the bright heat of the reentry shield against the sky, maybe. Wish it was a little more of the twilight, because you can see that kind of stuff from our coast here. So, all right, folks, something that I set up that really turned me on as a youngster was the first spacewalk. We did not know all the details about it, but now we do, because Alexi Leonov there, a hero of the Soviet Union people, did the first brave step 60 years ago. I think he was about age 27. But this brave Russian cosmonaut took the first tentative steps into the cosmos, an astounding event that reverberated around the world. Once again, the world thought Russia was leading the space race, that they were the most technologically advanced in the world. There's Leonov in his helmet there with CCCP, which says Soviet Socialist Republic. And these are pictures that were somewhat controversial at the time. I couldn't find the ones that were controversial with the shadow behind him, but there's what people said were 2 blobs of a studio light instead of the 1 blob of brightness of the sun, showing that it was done in a studio with a backdrop, quite possibly. And here's a beautiful artist rendition of this spacewalk. All right, this gives you the whole Voskhod spacecraft that was just a upgraded Vostok that had 1 astronaut in it. The first 6 Vostoks, the last one was a woman, Valentina Tereshkova, and they all ejected out the side of the hatch where this tunnel, EVA tunnel is, and landed on their own 2 feet. Now the first Voskhod, the first Voskhod spacecraft, not Tok but Hod, they put 3 cosmonauts in it without spacesuits as a publicity stunt, and that was Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev, the premier, did that, and he was ousted during that flight. And those 3 cosmonauts fortunately got to come back safely. In fact, Mark Thel responsibly says Voskhod 1 was irresponsible. No pressure suits. 1 astronaut was laying across the laps of the other 2. And then when they got in weightlessness, they felt a little bit better in there. But yes, Marty.
JoAnn's in the restroom. Should be right here.
Oh, okay. JoAnn Morgan's here, and that's awesome. Cool. Gonna wrap it up here in just a few minutes. Here, might say hi to JoAnn. Pull her up here a minute, I guess. I'm gonna ask her about that, what she remembers about that. All right, let's go through this real quick. Here's the picture I was showing you. And there's what Time magazine, when the Russians did release a picture, this grainy photo is what they showed us, taken from a video camera attached outside there. So you've got the image here of, this looked to me like burlap, like a canvas burlap sack, stylized for a tunnel that Alexi Leonov did. Now, Gary Allgaier, who's going to be on the show next week, said this is all because of the pressure inside. They had to do it in there. Hello, JoAnn.
Hello.
I'm good. I'm going to bring you over here in a minute.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. We're talking about Alexi Leonov, first spacewalk.
Yeah.
So think about what you think about that in here. Just let me just bring her in here. Let me go off set here and introduce to you JoAnn Morgan, NASA legend. Let's you walk over. Let's stand up there. Yeah. Give me a big hug there. Looks so nice. Let me move this around first. Step over there by Mark. And then let me put this in here. I knew. All right. There we go. This is special, everybody. And we've got a lot of people. We got so much. JoAnn Morgan, a pleasure to have you on Stay Curious. So nice to
Thank
see you. I
you.
love your shirt.
Oh, it's a
Look at-
Florida shirt. And look, there's a shuttle on it.
Absolutely.
It's kind of green. Oh, no,
Oh yeah.
Can y'all see it?
Yeah, that's a frog, or that's a alligator. Maybe on the other side of the shuttle. Where's the
Oh.
shuttle?
Where's the shuttle? Where is it?
Yeah. Anyway, JoAnn Morgan did so many things to break.
There
There
it
you
is.
are, right there, to break the women's barrier. But famously, you were the first woman in the launch control for Apollo 11, and we're going to feature her at our Friday night event here at the Space Museum. One thing I also think you neatly did is you were over the human spaceflight section for a while too, weren't you? Yes.
Yes.
Correct me exactly what that was.
Well, I worked in the Launch Operations Center's missile firing lab, and during the Mercury and Gemini programs and early Apollo, we were just one big team, and I was a college student, so working in the summers, it was, very exciting for me being a 17, 18, 19-year-old and being part of that Launch Operations Center was very exciting.
But then when you went through the ranks and so forth, and we're going to have a program with you here, maybe we'll do it next week or the week before Shuttle Fest there. We did a program with you remotely with Susie Cunningham. Wow, probably 3.5 years ago when COVID had everybody locked down. 5
Yeah.
years ago was COVID, believe it or not. But and JoAnn and I are going to go over her program that we're going to do, and we're going to. I really feel our Friday night Shuttle Fest. I feel people have to see our museum, JoAnn. If we're going to do an event as a fundraiser, we've got it at this wonderful Hyatt Place Hotel the last 4 years, but people need to see this museum, don't they?
Absolutely. In fact, we need to work on getting a great museum here in Titusville.
Yes.
This is a good beginning, but we have so much that we could do more.
Good. Yes. Well, we'll sign you up for the fundraising committee there, because this is what our Shuttle Fest has become. And y'all are going to meet her. I'd say we've got people all over the world watching. Okay. Dean Babcock is looking forward to meeting you at Shuttle Fest. He's up in Decatur, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Steve Jokums is up also in Illinois. He's a sponsor of Shuttle Fest financially. I'll tell you more about him, but Gary Gerald is our Vidalia onion farmer up in Collins, Georgia.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite onions, too.
Well, Gary, you heard that when you and your wife Donnie bring me that little parcel of them. They've got me hooked on him because he's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've met most of these people, JoAnn. That's what's so wonderful about this program and how we've reached out through the museum. You've been part of this museum long before I was here. And know Charlie Mars, and of course we dearly miss Karen Conklin. And but JoAnn, the torch has passed from the shuttle to the shuttle era, from the Apollo era in this museum, and you were in both.
True.
In there.
Yeah, I didn't retire until 2003, so I'm still part of the ISS community too, because in the beginning, getting to go out to California and see the truss when it was built and things like that, and work with some of the astronauts who got to fly on it and do their missions. In fact, I remember Sunny from her first flight, who's just landed, I guess.
They're landing at Sunny's.
About to land.
About 3 minutes before 6. They'll go through reentry there. Yes, what I was saying is late in your career, you were over the management part of human spaceflight, weren't you?
Yes, I spent the last 20 years of my career as a manager executive, and I had several different jobs, all of which I enjoyed, with one exception. My hardest job was being safety and mission assurance director, because you're the next to the last person to give a go for launch.
That's what I was thinking about.
And you don't do that willy-nilly. You do your homework. And 3 astronauts convinced me I should take that job. I didn't want to take it, but Bob Crippen and John Young and Fred Gregory all said, JoAnn, do this. And I'd always have lunch with astronauts before their mission, and they wanted to know if I was worried about anything. So as you can imagine, I did do my homework and made sure that all our missions in my tenure were successful.
Yeah, I view that as a really important part of your career that people probably don't talk about enough about you.
Yeah, not my favorite job, not the
Yeah.
most fun job.
Well,
But
it was because
but,
responsibility, and there's a great picture of you in this wild-looking hat with Pam Bowes on one side of you, and
yeah, Pam Melroy.
yeah, Pam
Astronaut
Melroy. Pam Melroy
yeah.
is on. I think she just landed, and the 135 astronaut is in the Hall of Fame. Was there? I'm going to look at my shuttle scroll here. See, I got a scroll here. Magnus, Sandy Magnus.
Yeah.
Sandy Magnus and Pam Melroy, and you were on the runway after I think
Yeah.
Pam landed as her first command or
Yeah.
pilot, something like that. So you're going to be treated by JoAnn talking about these stories and stuff like that. We talked about, so you'll be lucky at the American Space Museum here on Friday, April 11th. I know at least 3 astronauts will be here autographing, doing some stuff, but you're the feature. We want you to have a great evening, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, with some friends and stuff. And then through Shuttle Fest, you're going to meet, see people you haven't seen in a while. That's what we're all about. But since I have you here, two things happening today. Tell us about Sunny and Sunny Williams, what you know about her. Then you know Butch Wilmer at all?
I don't really know him. I remember Sunny coming into the Corps and her first missions, and what a nice gal, how smart, how competent she was. And I really admire that she took on the duty during this flight of being the commander up there. I think that was very courageous of her.
Yeah.
And a lot of admiration for this lady. And glad that she's going to get back here, and hope that physically that she's going to be good and bounce back.
So you're in the industry, so you hear all this drama. 8-day cruise turns into an 8-month cruise. What can you tell our space lovers out there about about the mentality of the astronauts, and 2, the overhype of that they're stranded? Does that irritate you?
It does. It's media hype. I think if they were desperate to come home and had said we're desperate to come home, NASA would have tried to do something to help. But they're team players, and recognizing that there was work to be done, and there was a schedule now that had a lot of perturbations to it, and they rose to the occasion. I mean, not just courage, but a lot of patience and endeavor on their part to be successful up there and keep things perking along in that ISS. I admire both of them.
Me too. They did a spacewalk together.
I know.
I mean, that was unplanned,
Fabulous.
of course. And I'm going, what the ability to transition
She
into
did
that.
one of the longest spacewalks ever.
Yeah, right. And then they put the SpaceX suits on, got in with the 2 other Crew 9, and moved the capsule around to another docking port, so they got to take a little ride in and stuff like that. So I'm sure they're getting ready to get back, take the best universal ride ever. A-list ride there in there. And you know what I think escapes, and I was talking about JoAnn, talking with JoAnn Morgan here. Those of you don't recognize her. Is this is the 4th trip to space for this spaceship, all right, called Freedom. And that's not advertised enough. I keep track of the boosters. When they launch a booster, I kind of look, wow, the 17th time for that booster, or the, but they don't say enough about the SpaceX has built reliable, reusable human spaceships. You have a comment about that?
I think it's wonderful. As a matter of fact, back in the 60s when we were doing Apollo, I thought this kind of thing would be happening by 2000. That we would have reusable spacecraft, reusable boosters.
Yeah.
And it took a lot longer, took 15, 20 years longer, but now, and I have to say, that little New Zealand company, Rocket Lab, is coming up the learning curve with reusable flight hardware, and
That's a
you
good
know,
point, rocket
and
lab.
I think we need to see competition for SpaceX, and I'm cheering for these new companies to get in there and learn the business and manufacturing reusables, because we need all of this space effort to continue in order to keep the knowledge, the new knowledge that's coming in from the various spacecraft that are out there, and we're totally dependent now on this stuff in the sky.
Well, that's the way to put it. We
Everything
are.
we do, we're dependent on it for
Everything.
navigation, for weather, for communications, for data transfer. I mean,
There was a glitch back in the spring, or no, this is back in the fall. We were supposed to have Japanese kids come here and talk like we had yesterday. Had Don Thomas here and 35 beautiful Japanese kids that come on a regular basis through Japan, Florida. And there was a hiccup in the computer system, and they couldn't get on their airplanes to get over here, type of thing. One little hiccup can really mess up a lot of things. We talk about space history, and 60 years ago, 60 years ago was this spacewalk. And this is at the Cosmosphere, JoAnn. The picture I've got there, let me make that bigger there. This is a recreation of Alexi Leonov coming out of the makeshift tunnel that he almost killed him because he couldn't get back in it. His suit ballooned up. It was 10 minutes of a spacewalk. In 1965, you were heavily involved, getting into the do you remember this at all?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay.
I
And
do
did you ever
remember.
meet Alexei? And
I think I did when he was with a whole bunch of other Russians that were here.
Okay. Of course, a great friend
Yeah.
of Tom Stafford. I'm going to
Yeah.
speak of that. I know you knew the general
Yeah,
really well. He's been gone a year now, General Stafford. So,
yeah.
but this is at the Cosmosphere in Kansas. You ever been up there?
I have not.
Oh man, I'll get you booked up there. All right. So anyway, it looks so crude. It looks so Rube Goldberg. This on the side here, the brown is like burlap. All right, and it extended out. It was covered up at launch with a cover, and then that popped off, and this came out because the pressure inside they hadn't perfected. They couldn't expose the other cosmonaut to the embers of space. So this is what Time Magazine had of that event. Outside in space, all right? And I have to remind anyone under 40 years old what Time Magazine is that's watching today, but really it's in there. And Popular Science and others said that it was a hoax, that they had lied about it to win the space race, but this, because of the photograph showed a shadow behind Alexei on the Earth and maybe studio lights in his helmet, which those admittedly he may have been faked, Alexei said, but he really did it, and the other pictures came out on there. There he is in a picture with the studio lights. I've seen one that's had more shadow on it there, but this went around the world like a lightning bolt. Russians, a man has walked out its outer space. We're way behind. My gosh, and this was right at the start of the Gemini program. This was the last mission until 1967 when Komarov got killed in the Soyuz 1. And we had 10 successful Gemini flights after this one. But they didn't tell us a lot of information, JoAnn, and how hard it was and so forth. And when Ed White
we were still in a Cold War.
Yeah. And when Ed White walked, we wish we'd have known some things maybe in there.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about it? As I wax I was saying like a teenager, I remember, I was a teenager and I remember it so well. There's Alexei's handprints. Do you remember anything about, I'm going to get to that in a second. Do you remember anything about on the campus at Kennedy Space Center, people thinking, oh my gosh, we're behind?
We were, we knew we were behind. We knew we were behind, but we also were so busy working up to the Apollo. And here in Florida, we were building. We were building and taking over that 144,000 acres and putting in buildings and launch pads and all of that. So we were
Yeah, good point.
We were busy trying to get ready for the rest of Apollo. And I have to say, looking back on it, what a vision that Dr. von Braun and Dr. Debus and all that German team handed us, with how they and the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the new people coming into NASA laid out a space center that 60 years later is like the premier space port of the planet. I mean, is that awesome when you think about it?
It is. The foresight and how it's been carbon copied. And we're talking about the processing facilities, like a manufacturing plant being laid out. You had to lay out a rocket plant and human being facilities and stuff like that that had never been thought about before.
Exactly. And then building that big vertical assembly building, which was the largest building in the world at the time.
Yeah.
And is still one of the largest.
Yeah. Single story building up there. When was the last time you were in there?
It's been about 4 or 5 years. I went out to Complex 39 when they were dedicating renaming the Launch Control Center for Patron,
Yes.
our first launch director, and I took a little quickie tour around to see things. So
we loaned him Rocco's helmet, his hard hat that
Yeah.
we had in our case here. There, yeah, that's a cool thing. They got Norm Carlson's beans in there. I
right.
saw pictures of stuff like that. Dean Babcock's got a question from Marty Winkle.
JoAnn, what advice would you have for the incoming NASA administrator?
Oh, goodness. Well, I would say one thing is be careful who you get rid of.
Okay.
That's my top advice. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because a lot of these NASA people do know what they're doing. They are needed for the success overall, and commercial can do tremendous things, and we really need them, and we need good competitive commercial organizations out there. But we need our NASA team to be in place and be competent. We can't keep the U.S. with the premier spaceport of the planet if we ignore that rule. Be careful who you dump out of NASA, new administrator.
And that looks like that could be Jared Isaacman, of course.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
know about him? What do you think about
I
Jared?
have not met him, but I'm very impressed with him. I was in the UK when he popped up like a meerkat out of his spacecraft, and I got a big kick out of that. And it's not the same as a spacesuit. You know, his design was so different, and they were part of a spacecraft. I thought they're really part of a spacecraft. It's like an octopus, you know, with each is an arm of a spacecraft. But that took guts, courage, and his hardware worked, which was good. It wasn't particularly mobile, but I think his age and his energy, and you know, space is the kind of thing that attracts young people, and I think his youth and his entrepreneurship and his technological background is going to be attractive to young people, and we need our youth in this country to do their STEM studies and care and get into both NASA and the commercial world and make it even more successful in the future.
We're talking to JoAnn Morgan, NASA legend, I like to say, but you're very humble about what you do, but you share it a lot. What would your title be? You were engineer. What title do you put? Marty, we might even have her in our racked up things there, but from a previous show. But
well, I started out as a student, and then I got certified as an engineer. I hold 2 degrees. Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Management, and from Stanford, where I had a scholarship. But for 15 years,
Stanford. Don't stumble over Stanford there. That's hard school back in your day.
It was, and I was the first woman to get that degree and the first class to get that degree.
Wow.
So 2 other women were in that class, and one of them's deceased already. But my last 25 years, I had 5 different executive level positions, which I really enjoyed that. I didn't ask to be a manager or an executive. I got recruited into those roles, and I enjoyed it. I learned it a lot. I always felt like with NASA, number one, I never had a dull day. I had some hard days, but I never had a dull day at my work. I worked with a lot of great people, and I learned something every day. And I still am learning things from NASA. I mean, I just love all of the emails that I get, and going on the internet, and you just click on NASA and you can find out all kinds of new things to learn. Love
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Watching NASA TV last night to watch the undocking. They have a cool moon, uh, pictures of the moon from lunar orbiter and their sunrises and sunsets. And I'm a moon guy, and there's beautiful music behind it, and there's just soothing. But definitely, JoAnn is always speaks to the youth out there. You're one of these forever young people out there that we're glad you're around. And you come into Shuttle Fest. If you haven't got your ticket, we're going to sell out. And imagine you're going to meet two of NASA's women that broke the glass ceilings everywhere they went. And I've heard a lot about you, from other space workers that aren't other. Some of them aren't with us now, like wonderful Murphy Wardman and Jack Martin and so forth that worked on the Cape. And she's held in such high regard for not the good job, just you did a great job working, but how you promote and open the door for so many women. And we can't underestimate that, because you're a little bit older than me, but I'm a baby boomer, and man, the women have come a long way, baby,
Yeah.
haven't they?
Well, I didn't just mentor women, I mentored men too. The acting director of the Space Center once worked for me,
Okay.
Kelvin Manning, and our director there went up to Washington, and she's an interim administrator until the new administrator gets confirmed in the Congress. And
Yes, that's amazing
and
for
so
her.
and yeah, and Janet, but Calvin Manning over there, and I think they both are doing a great job. They're carrying the
Yes, they
baton
are.
and doing a great job in what's got to be for them a difficult time with the change of administration and the crazy new rules that are coming out and how they impact the workforce.
And
Yeah.
Janet, so underestimated, Janet Petro, going from the Director K Space Center to the acting director of NASA. And she spent 12 years with Bob Cabana as his assistant and
Deputy, yeah.
deputy.
Yeah.
Together, they transformed a spaceport that was launching 5 or 6 rockets a year, if they were lucky, to we're doing every 4 days. And we just did one an hour ago. So,
Yeah.
Marty, got a question.
We have a question from Michael Bruno. JoAnn, do you converse with the team working on Starship much? What do you think of their challenges lately?
No, I have not. I've been invited out there, but I have not had time to go out there. I do know some of the people, but I've had no conversations with them, so I'm afraid I can't tell you anything profound there.
But good questions. We got a very intelligent group of people out there. In fact, Michael Bruno's up in Canada, and Dean Babcock's got a question. Marty.
He says, my wife used to work in a male-dominated field and felt some intimidation at first. How did you overcome the intimidation?
Actually, I never felt intimidated. I was very lucky. I'm a child of World War II. I was born in 1940. So my earliest memories are a lot of men leaving and a lot of women picking up all of the decision making. So I first give you an example. Rationing came out. My grandpa went to hear what was going to be rationed and how it would affect our family. And they came back from that meeting and they said, well, we're going to be rationed coffee and gas and sugar. And here I am, like 3 years old. And he said, sugar, my little ears perked up because I love my sugar butter biscuit. And the next thing was soap. I loved my bath too. That was big mama time, having my bath. And so the fact that sugar and soap were going to be rationed was kind of disturbing to this little 3-year-old. And all of a sudden, my grandmother sat up. She said, Whit, that was my grandpa, said, you and the boys, you need to plant 10 acres of sugar cane. I can make sugar. And she did.
Wow.
And the next thing she said, and I can make soap. I'll make you up a list of everything. And it was like, I saw how fearless women were. One of my aunts went to California to work. I mean, I'm a little girl on a plantation in Alabama. And an uncle went to Oak Ridge. He was a carpenter, but apparently they needed his skills up there. And nobody would talk about what their work was, but as a child, I could see this was all connected to the war. Anyway, I grew up as a child not ever being afraid. So when I came to work first for the Army in 1958 as a student, I just didn't feel intimidated. I was exposed to everything from crude languages to attempted assault and all kinds of stuff. I don't bore you with that. But I didn't ever feel afraid because I think somehow as a child, the idea that women would be afraid of anything, it never got into my brain.
That's awesome. I really, I'm listening to all that like you are and just going, wow, this is some, we understand a little bit how you tick. I mean, amazing. And taking that and becoming what you did at NASA is an inspiration to men and women. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, and
I've never really heard anyone talk. I'll stay curious about World War II like that, and that the women just, I'll make cane out of sugar cane. I'll make sugar.
yeah.
I'll make soap. The can-do attitude, of course, and pride in your craft also. Two things that I think might be missing in today's society here. So
And being fearless, it's a problem. You figure out what to do next, and the decision making. What I think really grabbed me as a very young age was women were making decisions too, not just men. And they were courageous, and they were stepping out and saying, we can do something that we haven't done before. So
well, I'm enjoying this conversation, and you're going to get more of it at Shuttle Fest, but we'll have JoAnn on a special program here in the next couple weeks. You like wintering here in your kind of your hometown area here, and then where do you spend the summers?
I have a house in the mountains in Montana, so I don't like hurricane season. I'm on the ocean up at New Smyrna, and you have to evacuate the barrier islands, so I just evacuate to Montana.
Well, don't be surprised if I show up with a telescope on your doorstep. I am craving some dark skies for my astronomy
And
fix up
I
there.
am
So
near-
I'm sure it's beautiful up
I'm
there.
near Glacier Park, and we have wonderful night skies. I mean, it's a dark. The park
Milky
is a
Way's
dark
gotta be
sky,
awesome.
and it's just fabulous. Yeah, the Milky Way comes right over my house there.
We'll want to talk just a little bit more, a few more minutes about today's space history. That if you didn't know it, Alexi Leonov, right there, whose handprints Charlie Mars got with Kubasov at our Apollo-Soyuz test project pylon out there to our Spaceview Park. He was going to be the first Russian on the moon. Here is a drawing of what that Luna LK-1 was, the lunar lander for the Russians. Pretty well known knowledge now, but wasn't 20 years ago well understood. 25 years ago. They were going to take like a Soyuz spacecraft with this attached to it. Leonov was with 2 cosmonauts. Leonov was going to get in it, land in about a phone booth. If you remember what a phone booth looks like, there's a person there with that. Oh yeah, let me make that bigger back here. There, that's what that would have looked like in Russia in there. They had looking down, that's why you got the, as he landed, and there's a real deal of it. And here he is looking up through that window as he's landing. Would get out quickly, get some samples, take some pictures, and then rocket up on that one orbit, maybe a 2-hour orbit. Very brave thing. I've read as much as I can about Leonov from time to time. He didn't have much confidence that this was going to work, but yet again, he was a good team player there. On there, and a couple pictures of him and the Apollo Soyuz test project that we're going to celebrate 50 years. Here at the museum in July. There's Leonov on the right, Tom Stafford, who passed away. Leonov died in 2019 at age 85. Stafford, a year ago today, March 18th, 2024, at age 93. There he is with Deke Slayton. And he was quite an artist, a sketch artist, like pencil sketching. And he made that's a sketch he made of Tom Stafford in space up there. A little known fact that he did do some artwork up there. Of course, Nicole Stott's known for that. Snoopy became the, having you here, you know how important Snoopy is to the safety aspect. And it started with Apollo 10 when they named the command module Charlie Brown and the the lunar module Snoopy. What have you got to say about that, our friends? Snoopy Award. Did you give out any Snoopy Awards that become the mascot of safety?
Well,
and you were over safety and assurance.
The astronauts were the ones that gave the awards out, but when I was a manager, we nominated people for those awards. So I often every year would nominate some people for special, extra neat things that they did that were meaningful, and recommend that the astronaut crew award them the Snoopy. And those are such a special award because they were very careful to vet and make sure that we all had done our homework on the deserving nature of the employee to get the Snoopy Awards.
We've got one of Norm Carlson's in our case in the Space Worker
one of his
there.
Snoopies.
Yeah, his Snoopy Award there. I'll show it in there. And there's Leonov and his best friend there. They truly were great friends to the end there. And the general's got a fabulous museum outside of Oklahoma City in his hometown of Weatherford. And there's Tom in his later years there. Boy, he would talk orbital dynamics or anything with you there. And JoAnn, he was on the safety committee of the International Space Station with astronaut Jim Adamson. And had two other counterparts. For 20 years, they met once a month and talked about the Russian and American safety on the International Space Station. And he did that till he passed away. And in fact, Tom gave a eulogy in Russian at the state funeral for Leonov up there. So just an interesting fact, 266 other humans followed Leonov into space. This is the last 10 spacewalkers. Indeed, Jared Isaacman's there with Sarah Gillis. She stood up in the Polaris Dawn to do a stand-up EVA also. We were talking about the Chinese astronauts up there, including a woman, and she's in there. So 267 humans have done a spacewalk, and he was the very first. It happened today and 60 years ago. So appreciate everybody watching today, and thank you for coming on here and wanting to do this impromptu interview. JoAnn Morgan, but Dean Babcock says, Miss Morgan, you're a true pioneer. Thank you. And that's why we're going to have a little evening with JoAnn Morgan at your Shuttle Fest that hopefully you've signed up to come on April 11th. That's what she came here to talk to me about, not knowing I was going to pull her on the show here today, but so glad I did. And thank you so much. I think a lot of people learn quickly about you, and a lady that worked hard in a male-dominated world, let's face it, and opened up a lot of doors for others. What a joy it's going to be to have you and Eileen Collins here in the same room together. Do you know Eileen very well?
I just saw Eileen a few weeks ago when her documentary we had a private viewing of the
Yeah.
documentary, and she was signing books. I couldn't, I've had a knee replacement, so I couldn't stand in the line to get her to sign my uh, biography that she's written, so her autobiography.
Right.
So in fact, they were going to ship it to me because she ran out of books. So I haven't got it yet, and I'm anxious to read it. But
Well,
yeah,
I've got plenty in the next room here because
oh
we got
my,
a supply of books for her to sign at Shuttle Fest.
yeah,
So, Mark Usiak says, great segment with you today. And Julie Clay says, thank you, JoAnn. So interesting and anxious to talk to you at Shuttle Fest. So that's what we're about at our American Space Museum, is promoting the American space worker like no other place does. And here you are on YouTube giving one of the true pioneers a forum here for you to ask questions to. So tell your friends to like us and share us and so forth, because that's how our humble nonprofit is making a little money, but getting outreach out there. JoAnn, you've been involved with this museum probably since the first days of it. You've been a solid financial supporter of us. We can't thank you enough, but like you observed, we're busting at the seams. We could have a much nicer place, and maybe that'll be in the cards down the road as we segue from the Apollo era. Truly, our board will be made up of all post-Apollo era people into the shuttle here, and I've watched that transition. I miss Mr. Lee Solid, what a great human
yeah.
being he was, and his wife Shirley, and on people that as we pass the torch in this thing called life, and but I'm glad that you're willing to share what you have here. So many of you are. So look forward to seeing you later. We're going to go out to dinner, folks, and talk a little bit about Shuttle Fest. So Marty, anything we need to fix up over there on our Streamlabs?
Nope, we're good, Mark.
Thank you, Marty, for a great show. And tomorrow is going to be a busy Wednesday, board meeting tomorrow afternoon, and astronomy day. So we'll talk about Butch and Sonny getting back safely and some other things on Stay Curious tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Mark Marquette, thanking JoAnn Morgan for being here with me to bridge the space between us. Thank you, folks.